Hello, my name is Jackie Von Spiegel. I run the Learning Center at The Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio. We are a research center studying learning and motivation in college students, and we're also a service center helping students with learning and motivation. So I love to share research and help translate it into practical everyday strategies. And today I'm talking with you about evidence based strategies for time management and productivity. At our Learning Center, we study self regulated learning, focusing on evidence based practical strategies for time management, procrastination, and productivity. You already know the basics, so I'm here today to share some new tools and strategies based on recent research from a variety of disciplines. First, let's review what time management is all about. To manage your time, you must first become aware of how you spend your time. Next, time management involves making a plan for how you spend your time and how you meet your goals. And finally, time management is not actually managing time. It marches on whether we like it or not, but rather managing yourself. I'll review the basic tips and strategies for each of these components of time management and then share some new research that you can use to improve your productivity. To become aware of how you're spending your time, you first need to track your time. There are a lot of ways to do this, but it is important to have an accurate understanding of where the time goes in your day. It's also good to zoom out and have an understanding of the percentage of your week or month that you spend on different tasks, roles, or projects. Using this tracking data, you can now better predict how long tasks will take and challenge yourself to increase your speed if you're looking to fit more into your day. As an early career researcher, you know that setting boundaries is critical when you are pulled in many different directions. No one is going to protect your time except for you, so you need to have a good understanding of your capabilities and availability. Last, we often neglect the impact of transitions when we track our time. We think we can move from one meeting to the next and go between work and home in the blink of an eye, but those transitions do take some time and energy. If you find transitions to be a sticking point for your time management, let's talk about how to increase your speed of engagement with some new research. How quickly are you able to shift from home to work and between projects and roles? Recent research from the field of human resource management demonstrates ways that you can better start your workday by explicitly acknowledging the separation between roles. As you transition between roles, such as from home to work, first, list important concerns about your home and give yourself permission to set them aside. In this study, they used voice notes to list these concerns, but you could also write them down or type them into your phone. Next, start thinking about your work priorities and tasks for the day to ease your mental transition. Research from consumer psychology suggests that estimating how long each task will take and writing it down will increase your speed of engagement further, particularly if the estimated times are short. Less than 10 or 15 minutes is the best. If you can, try to do all of this on your daily commute to get your day started in a quick way. Regarding time estimation, I often hear from the graduate students that I coach that tasks always take longer than they estimate. This continual failure to complete tasks in the allotted time can be very demotivating. So now we can discuss the Hemingway effect. This is based on Ernest Hemingway's suggestions on how to be a more prolific novel writer. And educational researchers have studied how to keep the motivation up even when tasks are not completed. This study found that stopping when the end is in sight leads to more motivation than having a lot left to do, or compared to completing the task and having to do it again tomorrow. So leave a little bit on the table, but know what that bit is. Breaking down big tasks into small, clearly defined chunks with clear direction leads to increased motivation to complete the larger task. Great suggestions from Ernest Hemingway. Once we are aware of our time use, we can make a plan for how to use our time. First, it is critical to set goals, long term and short term, that are important to you. Next, we all know that using a planner or calendar or schedule of some sort is essential to time management. But there's no research showing that any format is better than the other. So use whatever works best for you. A paper planner, a Google Calendar, a whiteboard, whatever works for you, just make sure that your schedule reflects your goals. If I looked at your calendar right now, what would I think that your priorities and goals are? Make sure they match. Along with a planner, to-do lists are the best friend of the busy academic. Again, use the format that works for you, but make sure that your tasks are specific and brief. Less than an hour is best. If you have tasks on your to-do list that you estimate will take more than an hour, break them up into smaller chunks and then list the times again. Lastly, when we have a lot on our plate, prioritization is a hugely important skill. Blocking time on your plan for important tasks is a great start, but sometimes it can be hard to determine what our priorities are. That's where the Eisenhower matrix comes in. Popularized by President Eisenhower and Stephen Covey, this matrix disentangles importance and urgency. We often confuse the two, especially when we get a notification on our phones. We confuse it that we think it's urgent. Because it's urgent, it's also important. But we know that's not the case. The difficult part of this matrix is determining which of your tasks goes into each quadrant. This is where we have to go back to having clearly defined and meaningful goals. Keep those in mind as you're using this matrix. So if a task is important or important to your major goals, and it is urgent, it has a short deadline, then do it now. If it is important to your goals, but not urgent, you need to decide or plan ahead to schedule a time to work on that task. If the task is not important to your goals, but it is urgent, that would be a good time to delegate if possible. And if it's not important and not urgent, Eisenhower says to delete. Just don't do it. However, there's been critics of the Eisenhower matrix saying it's too stark and it doesn't recognize that we often work in teams in real life. In 2020, researchers studying AI and business amended this matrix and created a Venn diagram and an accompanying app. I tried to find the app in the App Store, but it doesn't seem to exist anymore. But maybe somebody else will create a new app based on the Sung diagram. In the Sung diagram, they added a dimension. How well does the task fit with yourself? So they will have fit in one category, urgency in one category, and importance in another. By using this diagram in a similar way to the matrix, you can organize your task list into a priority list both for yourself and for your team. One thing that I hear all the time is, what if everything is important and urgent? We often live most of our lives in the urgent and important quadrant, but sometimes it's hard to prioritize even within that quadrant. How do you decide what to do first? I wish I had a quick fix for this situation, but unfortunately I don't. However, I do have some strategies that could help. The research in educational psychology suggests that starting with the most difficult task is the best way to keep your motivation going after you finish that task. Sometimes we think we will just start with the easiest task just to get us going, but it actually just makes the rest of the list even harder to complete. It's an uphill battle. Researchers in consumer psychology found that focusing on the importance of the task, the why are you doing it? Why is it important? Helps us to focus on important tasks instead of just the easy or most urgent ones. And lastly, try to minimize how many decisions you make in a day. It's already too many, I can tell you that right now. Influencers on TikTok recommend rolling the dice to determine which task to start with. So you have a list of things to do and you roll the dice to see which one you do first. Although there isn't specific research on this strategy, the method does have merit by randomizing the decision-making process when you have a bunch of things that are all the same level of importance and urgency. Just start with something. Similarly, there's one study examining decision fatigue in online streaming services. How do you decide what to watch next on Netflix? Using AI or maybe asking Alexa to decide for you based on your previous decisions can help to minimize the amount of decisions you need to make in a day. So let's use some randomness or AI as our personal assistant. The last component of time management is managing yourself. While you are working, how do you keep yourself on schedule and goal oriented? A few tried and true strategies include using timers or Pomodoros to get started or to regulate your focus. Setting reminders for yourself can aid your perspective memory, remembering what to do in the future, and remind you to check in with yourself during the workday to make sure you're staying on track. Managing distractions is a constant battle in today's world. So recognize what's distracting you and make plans to prevent or minimize those distractions. Lastly, taking breaks from vacations to bio breaks have strong evidence to that they improve your energy, cognitive performance, well-being, and productivity. So take that break. But one thing we don't talk about often enough, how do we do breaks right? What makes a break actually restful and restorative? There's loads of research on this, and I would love to share some newer findings with you. First, micro breaks, these are breaks that are less than 10 minutes, are very effective when they're frequent throughout the day. So end those Zoom meetings a few minutes early and encourage your colleagues to get off their computers for those few minutes. Take a micro break. Now, what do you do during the break? It's very important. There's a very common finding across all the literature that the basic thing that you need to do to make a break restorative is to do something very different from what you were doing. So, what are we doing most of the time? Probably sitting, reading, and looking at a screen. So, during your break, don't do any of those things. Detaching from work is the best way to give your brain a break, just for a couple minutes, or possibly for a longer vacation. If you want to help your brain uh, feel more restful, engage your brain in a different way. For most of us, if we're honest, we spend more time than we like on social media, and we often go to social media as a break activity, sometimes out of habit. But the research is mixed on how effective social media is at improving productivity and well being during these breaks. However, social engagement, actual talking with a person or an animal, petting your dog, is generally a better way to get rejuvenated during the break. And we're often trying to find ways to incorporate more exercise into our sedentary lifestyles. So, new research from the health field has found promising effects from exercise snacks. These are bouts of vigorous exercise like running up the stairs or jumping jacks for about 1 minute. Do these exercise snacks throughout the day, and you will help your cardiovascular health, your cognitive performance, and your mood. All good things. Okay, I shared a bunch of old and new strategies with you today. I hope you found them interesting and helpful. Remember that time management is critical for productivity and well-being. And I encourage you to try new strategies and see what works best for you. The thing about time management is it is not one size fits all. There are some things that are common amongst most people, but we need a lot of strategies in our toolbox to fit each different situation. And practice self compassion to increase productivity and well being. Time management is a practice. We don't always get it right every day. So be gentle with yourself, practice some self compassion, and try it again the next day. Thank you so much for having me to your conference. You can learn more with the references and resources that I submitted. And you can always feel free to email me. My email is vonspiegel.2@osu.edu. And I would love to hear your questions. Thank you so much.